Fantastic. If you're here, you're visiting, then you have just stumbled into one of our biggest celebrations in the year. This is our First Fruits Sunday.
Yeah, come on.
And what you're going to see today is, at the end of the talk, you're going to see people who are going to come and they're going to bring an offering that's above their tithes. It's a generosity offering, and they're going to put it into these buckets at the front. And what you're going to see is love in action. There's no obligation here. No one's been told that they've got to do anything. This is pure free will. This is love in action. I think a lot of the time we talk about love, and today's going to be a time where you actually put it into practice. In the Bible, it says that God so loved the world that he gave his only son. You can give without loving, but you can't love without giving.
Wow.
And so we want to put our love into practice. So if you're visiting, don't feel any pressure. You can just sit back. You can just relax. You don't have to be part of this. If you want to be part of this, then you are absolutely welcome. But this is something that we really value. This is something that we get excited about. If you came in today and you felt there's a little bit of expectation, there's a little bit of electricity, a little bit of excitement, it's because we get really excited about being generous. We get really excited about worship. We get really excited about putting God first. So that's what we're going to be doing this morning. And I always say we do this every year. This is our second year, so we've done it once before. But last year, we moved to this cinema. And the reason why we are even here is because at the beginning of the year, we said we're going to do a first fruits offering. And people gave sacrificially, and that meant that we could move into this cinema. And now it's amazing and it's full. And we're going to take up another offering today. And the heartbeat of this, it isn't that it's going to go towards continuing anything that we've got already. It's that it's going to be pushing into the new. We want this money to be reaching brand new people.
Yeah, come on.
We want to see people who have never heard the name of Jesus to discover him through what we give today. And so this is all about starting new initiatives, reaching new people, seeing God do new things through this. So I'm really excited for this, and that's what's going to be happening later. Last year, there was maybe the cinema was half the size, at most, and we gave, a small church, we gave almost £6,000.
Wow.
It's just incredible. So that was, I don't think we ever announced that.
Great,
so that was last year. And
wow.
I'm not saying we need to beat that this year, but I just wanted to let you know that was what happened. And so we're excited for what God's going to do this year through this first fruits offering. And really that is going to be the main event today. That's the main focus of this service. That's the main point. But before we get there, I just thought I'd share a little bit of a thought, a bit of a devotional maybe before we get to that, just to help us as we're thinking about faith, as we're thinking about generosity, we're thinking about giving. I don't know about you, I've been thinking about this all week. And this verse came to mind. If you've got a Bible, you can find it there. If you have the Soul City app, then you can go into the Sermons tab and you'll find one called Notes, and you can follow all along. Everything I've got to say will be in there as well. And if you've got a normal paper Bible, you can turn to 2 Corinthians 5. And I really just want to give you a few thoughts off the back of 2 Corinthians 5, verses 6 to 7 today. And this is what it says. It says, "So we are always confident, even though we know that as long as we live in these bodies, we are not at home with the Lord. For we live by faith and not by sight. We live by faith and not by sight." I think that this is one of the most misquoted, misunderstood, and misused verses in the entire Bible. I think that people have no idea what this means at all. And I think that this is one of the verses that actually stands in the way of people coming to know Jesus, because they're like, I don't like the idea of living by faith and not by sight. I know stuff, I've studied stuff, I can see the world around me, and what they think this looks like is this. They think that what we have to do to live by faith is to put a blindfold on and then to just kind of work it out. It's well, I don't really know the next step, so I'm going to just live by faith. I mean, I know I'm not going to look at my bank account before I give an offering. I'm just going to make the decisions. It doesn't matter what my health is like. God's going to heal me, so I don't need to go to a doctor. Forget all of the scientific stuff. I don't need anything that makes sense rationally. I just live by faith and not by sight. And we think that we have to do this kind of spiritual bird box challenge. That walking by faith involves shutting our eyes off to everything else. But I don't think that is what Paul is talking about at all. You know, I don't think that living by faith means blinding ourselves. I don't think it's about seeing less. What Paul is talking about is seeing more. He's saying, see the world around you, see the situation, see the environments, but also walk by faith. There's more.
Yeah.
Maybe you've even come today and you've got this sense that in your life there must be more than this. I'm here to tell you today that you're right, there is more. There's more than you can see, there's more than you can feel, there's more going on. And so we don't just walk by what we have around us. We don't just walk through our situations. We need to learn to walk by faith.
Yeah, it's good, bro.
So I just want to give you some thoughts into this morning. I'm going to pray first, and then I want to unpack what I think it means to walk by faith, because we get so lost. So Lord God, I want to pray that you will make this scripture alive for us today.
Amen.
That you will speak directly into our lives, that you'll open our eyes, that you'll open our ears, that you'll show us more. Lord, we don't want to live small lives. We don't want to live insignificant lives. We don't want to run around in existing circles. We want to step into new horizons. We want to live in multicolor. We want to live life to the full. And so, God, make this scripture come to life today. Show us things that we've never seen before. Let us see more so that we can follow you in a far deeper, a far greater, and a far more faithful way. Amen. Amen. A couple years ago, I was doing my morning Bible study. And I read a verse in Psalm 112, and it said this. It said, shout in celebration of praise to the Lord. Everyone who loves the Lord and delights in him will cherish his words and be blessed beyond expectation. Their descendants will be prosperous and influential. Every generation of his godly followers will experience his favor. Great blessing and wealth fills the house of the wise, for their integrity endures forever. And as I read this in the morning, it just struck me that he was saying that blessing involves wealth. Now, I don't know about you, but I've always had a hard time with this thought. I've been like, I accept that God wants to bless me, but does that mean that I should pray for more money? Like, that feels wrong somehow. That feels selfish somehow. Like, I've struggled with this idea, and I think there's been so much bad teaching about this, and we've seen it in churches where it's like, do you know what, just name it and claim it. If you want it, pray it, God will give you that Ferrari. And I'm like, that doesn't feel like the kind of faith that Jesus modeled. And so I really struggled, and as I was reading this, I was just trying to work out what it was really saying. And so I started praying, I started talking to Jesus, and I kind of said, like, God, I believe that you're the creator of everything, that there's nothing beyond you, that you created the stars, you created the trees, you created the animals, you created us, and we are, intricate, we are amazing in many different ways. And so I believe that you could create anything, and I believe that if you wanted to give me something, you could. And so I said, so how would you feel if I asked you to give me a free house? How would you feel about that, God? And just in my spirit, I felt like God said, okay then. And I was like, shut up. Like, what for real? Like you would give me a free house? Like, with no mortgage, with nothing around it, you just give me a house? And that was the end of my prayer time. And so I just went away thinking about this, and it was one of those things I was like, that'd be amazing if it happens, and then I'll tell everyone the story. But until that moment, I'm not telling anyone this, because that's an awkward kind of prayer to be praying, and I don't know if I really have faith that God would do that. The next day, I went and met up with a friend, and we were talking, and she just turned around to me and she said, I've got a word for you. I feel like God wants to give you a house without a mortgage. I was like, shut up. Like, for real, I was like, you wouldn't even believe this was just yesterday. I was praying about this and asking for this. I was like, that's amazing. And I went to church on Sunday, and we're just in the worship time, and I felt like God said, you need to tell people. And so I stood up in front of the church, and I said, you know that there's these moments when God gives you a promise, and it's a little bit like Sarah in the Old Testament. He gives it to you, and you laugh because it's so ridiculous. There's just no way in my situation that this could ever come true. And yet he gives it to you, and we need to speak those promises out. And so I told the whole church. And then people started coming up to me at the end saying, oh yeah, you know, I prayed once that I would have a house without a mortgage. And that's really nice. And I was like, this isn't helpful for my faith. You're telling me you prayed it and didn't get it. Like, that doesn't build me up. Don't tell me this stuff. And so I just was like, I went from there and I was like, I don't really know what to do with this anymore. And so I kind of decided I wanted to somehow hold on to it, but without kind of trying to force it, trying to make it drive my life. I didn't want to get frustrated by it. I just wanted to accept it if God did it. And a little while later, there was the first fruit offering. And I think it was the first. There's a big offering either way. It might have, actually, as I think about it, it might have been at the Message. I think it was Urban Hero Awards, actually. And I felt like God said to give a big amount of money. And it was one of those, you know, when you kind of like, this will be a faith amount, and then God's asking me to kind of give this amount, and I was like, I don't really feel like we have that. And I gave it. And with Emma's permission. But I gave it. And then I thought, I'll give this knowing that God's promised me a house. Like, this is how it works, isn't it? God promises me a house, so I give away my money. And a few months later, I got a phone call from somebody, and they said, I want to give you a gift. I want to give you £15,000. And this is a deposit for a house for you. I want to give you the deposit for a house. And I was like, wow. Wow, like this is incredible. Like, this has never happened to me before. I don't get people knocking on my door saying, I want to give you big amounts of money. And I was like, it works. Maybe it's because I gave generously that I'm now being given to. And maybe that's how this all works. And I was like, wow, this is brilliant. God's going to give it to us. God's going to do this. I've now got the deposit. We could go for this. And we started looking at houses and getting all excited. And then 3 months later, God said to us, I want you to leave your job, and I want you to go and plant a new church called Soul City. And we took that money and we invested it in the church, and we used that money so that we could survive, so that we could live, so that we could eat, so that we could feed our kids as well. And that then became the deposit for this church. That money actually became the first fruits, in a sense, the investment that we poured out into this church in the belief that this was going to be a church that would be blessed, that God was going to do something amazing through this church. But at the same time, I was there doing it, recognizing that this church was going to cost me my house, literally. And so on the one hand, I was like, well, I gave, and then God gave back, and yet I ended up with nothing. I mean, I ended up with you guys. This is amazing. You guys are way better. Like, don't hear me wrong, right? But it took this strange journey. And there was this frustration in it, and there was this confusion in it. And I don't know that I understood what I was doing at any moment. But I rationalized it and said, well, this must be the house. This must be the promise. This must be what God gave to us. And so a few months ago, I was then at a coffee shop and I was preparing a sermon, as you do. And a guy sits down on a table next to me. And he says, what's a guy like you doing in a place like this? And I was like, oi, oi, sailor. Like, that's a cheap chat-up line, isn't it? Like, hello. But okay, I'll play this game. I was like, okay, who do you think that I am? And he said, well, you're a leader. You're creative. You're your own boss. And you're born in October. And I was like, yes. Like, this, I was just freaked out. I was like, yeah, that is all completely true. I lead the church that meets down in the cinema, Soul City. Like, who are you? And so he turns to me. This guy's like And he's like 6'4", a big black guy. He's got this huge, like, jewel ring on his finger. And he says, "I'm a pagan priest." And I was like, wow. And then now in my head, I'm just praying, right? I'm praying. I'm like, Jesus, I don't know what to say in this situation. This isn't what I thought I was doing right now. I thought I was just having a coffee. This has suddenly gone down a completely different path. And I was like, okay, nice to meet you, Mr. Pagan Priest, sir. And he starts telling me all of this stuff about paganity, about his religion. And he starts telling me that, they're the oldest religion. And I was like, yeah, but we've got Adam and Eve, so I don't know how that works. We kind of claim the first humans. And we had this long debate, conversation, really fascinating and totally confusing. And at the end, I was like, do you know what? I've got work to do. See you later. And he says to me, where's your church? And I said, oh, it's in the cinema, that beautiful building. And we love it there. And he was like, why would you want to be in a cinema? I was thinking, I like the cinema, but okay. I said, well, we're a brand new church. We don't have our own building. We just don't have that. And he said, well, like, walk around Stockport and you see all these empty buildings. Why don't you just take one of those? I was like, because it's that simple, right? and I said, we can't afford a building of our own. And he said, I'm a quantity surveyor. I want to give you a building. Shut up. Like, what, you want to give us a building? I want to give you a building. What would you want if I gave you a free building? Completely yours. And I was like, okay, well, we get like 60 to 80 people on a Sunday, so we probably want to have somewhere that would seat 250. Kids spaces, different age groups, youth space. Use it in the week, do youth club, we want area for coffees, offices. Something like that would be really nice. I don't want a long-term agreement, like give it for 2 years because we're growing really fast. I don't want to kind of put a cap on what God's doing either by you giving us a free building. But if you want to give it to us, that'd be amazing. And he said, leave it with me. So I'll be back in touch. I'll give you a free building. And I went back and I told Emma, and she was like, are we going to really take a free building from a pagan priest? How does that work? And I was like, I know, right? But where'd you draw the line? I mean, who do you say is allowed to bless us, and who do you say is not allowed to bless us? And if he gives us a building, then let's explore that when we get to it. And I genuinely thought, this is the last I'm ever going to hear from this guy. I'm never going to see him again. And 3 days later, he sends me a text message. I found it. Everything you could hope for. A place where all your dreams will happen. It's exactly what you described and more. And I was like, all right, calm down. This sounds good. He said, will you come tomorrow and I'll show it to you. Meet me tomorrow at 12 o'clock. I'll take you around. So I looked at my diary. It says, Stockport church leaders prayer lunch. Cancelled. I'm going to meet a pagan priest. Forget those church leaders with their prayer. Let's go explore. And so I went the next day, and I met up with this guy. And he takes me to this place, and honestly, it's probably the size of the front area of this screen. It was dirty. It was damp. There was a little pool table in the corner, and there's this kind of cockney geezer on the side going, all right, mate, come on, I need your money straight away. Loads of people want this, right? I need a deposit right now. It's going to cost you this, it's going to cost you that. Do you want it? Buy one, get one free, £7 a pound, apples and pears. He was it's like this guy in the corner. I was like, what even is going on? This is not what we talked about whatsoever. And I turned around and I was like, look, mate, it's all right. We're not interested. And he says to me, he looks really concerned. He was like, why not? Why are you not interested? Why don't you want it? And I said, well, to be honest, this isn't right for our yesterday, let alone our tomorrow. This isn't what we described at all. We need something far bigger. And he turns around and he says, aha, I was testing you. And I was like, oh no. This guy is a lunatic. He says, I was testing you. I could give you castles. I'm like, in Stockport? Like all those castles that no one has taken in the centre of Stockport that are just waiting there. And I was like, oh dear. And he says, let me just show you a couple of other places. He takes me down like this kind of dirty back alley in the centre of Stockport. And I had this moment, I'm like, this guy's massive, right? He's bigger than Nick. And I'm like, he's not really, no one's bigger than Nick, but he's big. I was like, I suddenly had this moment of, I am in a really dodgy situation right now. Am I going to be sacrificed to a goat? Like, is that how this is going to go down? And I don't mind taking risks for the sake of a good story, but there's no one here to tell the story. I need a witness, at least, somebody to run and tell my family what went down. And so I ended up saying goodbye, and he promised me that he'd take me on a tour of castles, and he's texting me now every day, sending me these different places for the church to go to. And I was in the car and talking to Emma, and we were just talking about all of this too. And I said to her, like, the thing that confuses me in this story is that he's helping us so much. Like, he's putting in so much energy. He's trying so hard to find us a location and to give it to us, I mean, apparently for free. Like, why is he putting in this much effort? He says that we're on the same team. He says that he came and sat down next to me. He said you were surrounded by light, so I went and sat down with you. I was like, that's what he's saying. But we all know that we're not trying to do the same things here. Why is he trying so hard? My son Cole, he's 7 years old. He sits in the back and he just says, Dad, he's trying to distract you.
Wow.
And I was like, you could hear a pin drop. I felt like saying, in kind of old English, Cole, thus saith the Lord. You did not think that yourself, but the Lord hath spoken through thee. Like it was that kind of moment. I was like, God just spoke through my 7-year-old. What's he distracting me from? What am I missing here? What am I not seeing? Where am I blind that I need some sight? A few days later, I'm still wrestling with this question. What's even happening in my life right now? And I get a phone call from a friend called Simon. And he says, I've just been to a church leaders prayer meeting in Stockport. He said, we gathered all the church leaders, all the charity leaders together, and there's a guy. And he's got a drop-in center, a coffee shop. And he wants to give it away. And he says that there's only 2 criteria that he wants it to be used for. He feels like God gave it to him. So he just wants to give it. He says there's 2 criteria. He says it has to be used for the gospel. And it has to be used for the gospel in relevant ways. And he says we gathered all the leaders in Stockport and they came together. And he said a bunch of people kept saying, you need to talk to the guys at Soul City about this. You need to talk to the... And I was like, I love that. I love that that's our reputation in Stockport, that we're people who share the gospel and we're people who do it in a way that's relevant, in a way that's understood, in a way that's mattered, in a way that changes lives. They're like, you need to talk to those guys. And so he said, so you need to phone this guy because he wants to give you a free building. I'm like, again. And I phone him up and we're talking and it's just the most beautiful, humble, God-centered conversation. I was just blown away with the heart of this man. And his passion is to see lives transformed. He says, you know what, I know what's around me right now, but my eyes are set on eternity. I want to use the resources that I have right now, right here today, to make a difference forever. He says that God gave me everything, and so it would be irresponsible of me not to give it to be used for the gospel. I was, wow, this guy, amazing. And we're talking, and he says, he said to me, he said, why weren't you at the meeting? And I was like, what meeting? He said, why weren't you at the meeting where I gathered all the church leaders together, you know, to come together and to pray, and I told them all about this building that I wanted to give away for free. Why weren't you there? And I was like, I was meeting a begging priest. I was like, oh, that was it. That was it.
Yeah.
I was following the promise from the wrong source.
Wow.
I was trying to find it by pushing into this direction, and it was there the whole time, and I didn't even see it. I was blind to it. Blew my mind. And so now we've been having these conversations. We've got another conversation with them tonight. And the conversation is really that they want to give us 4 stories of building
Wow.
purely to be used for the
Wow.
kingdom.
Yeah, thank you, Jesus.
Purely
Come
to
on.
reach new people, purely
Yeah.
to see people in Stockport and beyond come into this place
Yeah.
and meet Jesus. And that
Wow.
excites me because
Yeah, come
that's
on.
what first fruits
Yeah.
for me is all about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's good.
And so we're not there yet. We've still got more conversations, but I see a place which we could step into and we could take risks.
Yeah.
You know, we could make some beautiful mistakes and it would be okay. We could just take a punt and try some stuff. You know, I see a place which isn't just going to be about what happens there now, but which is going to be about eternity. I see a place where people's lives are going to be transformed, where
Yeah.
people's eternities are going to be completely different. This is what this is for us. And that excites me so much. And I tell you this story not just because it links into first fruits, because it does. This, hopefully, if this all comes together, we're going to put most of the first fruits money into this, because we want this to be an outpost for the glory of God. I tell you this, but I also tell you to highlight something that I've realized about my faith walk, and that is the sheer volume of time that I spend completely confused, completely unsure of what I'm doing, completely feeling stressed and frustrated. It feels like I have these moments of choice again and again and again, and I don't know what to do. It's like God wants to give me a house and he wants to bless me, but then he gives me a coffee shop. You know, like the house isn't even for me. The house is for the community. The house is for Stockport. He wants to bless to me, but he wants to bless through me.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
And I feel this tension. I'm like, well, what should I be doing within the middle of all of this? You know, he calls me out. He says, go and plant a church. And I'm like, but I've got kids. I've got bills. I've got stuff that has to happen. I feel this responsibility and I feel this risk. And I feel lost in the middle of it. I think that so often we're walking with faith and it's like I'm trying to work out, do I go here or do I go there? Do I do A or do I do B? Do I do this or do I do that? Do I follow this direction or do I follow that direction? Do I take the blue pill or the pink pill? Do you know what I mean? It's like I get lost and I don't know what to do. And it feels like there's this frustration. It feels like there's this tension in the middle of all of my faith. And maybe you're here today and you feel that as well. Maybe even as you've been praying and thinking about the first fruits offering that we're doing today, this is your feeling. So there's a tension here. There's the stuff I need to do. There's the stuff I want to do. There's the stuff that I can see, but I also know that there's stuff that I can't see. And I think that what we often end up doing is we try to resolve the tension. But what I've learned on this journey is that actually we shouldn't resolve the tension, that we need to learn how to hold contrasting truths in both hands at the same time. That we need to live within the tension. I think if you follow a God like our God, you have to learn how to hold two separate truths at the same time and still walk forwards. Now think about it. Who is God? God is three, but God is one. And we hold both. That's confusing. That can stress you out if you think about it too much. But that's who he is. God is everywhere, and yet God turns up and is present. You know, Jesus is fully man, and he's fully God. You know, God chooses us, and we choose God. Like there's these contrasting truths, and if you spend too much time trying to resolve it, trying to make it work, trying to rationalize it in your head, trying to make it so that you can see it clearly, you end up losing it. In James chapter 1, it says, consider it pure joy, every test, every trial, because under pressure, your faith comes alive and it shines the God colors of the world.
Wow. Yeah.
It's under pressure that your faith shines. It's intention.
Yeah, it's good, man.
You know, I think that this guitar is a perfect picture of faith. No, you don't need to go up and play it. I'll play it. I'll just show you this. Let me show you this picture of faith. This is what faith looks like. I haven't thought this through. Hold this for me for a second. I'm not actually going to play you a song, although I could. But if you look at this guitar, it's got a tension here and a tension here. What would happen if I started to turn these knobs besides Dave kicking off? It would ruin the sound. It would detune the guitar. There's something about the pressure of these strings that allows the note to ring true. Do you see this? That this guitar, when our lives are held with contrasting truths in tension, I think that is when they sing. I think that is when they resound. I didn't need to use the guitar for that. Thank you.
I thought you was going to play us a song.
I should have played you a song. I could have played you a beautiful ballad, a little sonnet, but then you might never invite me back up again. And so what I just want to quickly run through before we give is where I think the rubber hits the road for this for us today. The reason why I'm bringing this thought. Because when you step out in faith, you will find contrasting truths at every step. And your job isn't going to be to say, I need to resolve this, I need to hold on to one. It's going to be to say, how do I hold on to both? And I think that there's a few that I just want to quickly point out to you, which are helpful for you if you've got a big faith step in your life ahead of you. If you're going to give a first fruits offering today, this can also help you to understand what you should be giving and what that should look like. So I'm just going to run through these really, really quickly. The first is the tension between risk and responsibility. Risk and responsibility. We all have responsibilities. We have people who depend on us. We have things in our life that are there. Another way of saying this is risk and stewardship. God has given you stuff in your life, and you need to steward that well. However, faith also always involves a risk. John Wimber famously said that faith is spelled R-I-S-K. So as you take a step in your life, you should be asking yourself, does this feel risky? If I am walking hand in hand with the creator of the universe, if I am walking hand in hand with Jesus, if I am walking beyond the natural and in the supernatural, this should always feel a little bit risky. If you're making decisions that never feel risky, then you're not walking by faith. It is as simple as that. That's not to say that your faith is at the expense of your responsibilities. Its eyes are wide open to what you have around you. It holds that responsibility. But it also says, I'm going to take a risk. Me and Emma, we've been talking this week about what we're going to give today and the first fruits offering. And let's just say that she had more faith than I did. And she said a number, and I was thinking, well, that's not faith, that's idiocy. That's way too much. And then I've been praying about it, and what I've realized as I was thinking about it was I was holding really tightly to the responsibilities that I see. And I was starting to let go of the riskiness. I want what we give today to feel risky. I want our next steps to be a bit risky. So that's the first tension. Whenever you make a big step of faith, is it risky and responsible? The second I want you to think about, the second tension is the tension between freedom and duty. Freedom and duty. We live in a hyper-individualistic society where we say, do you know what, you can do what you like, anything you want, you are free. As long as it doesn't hurt anybody else, you can do whatever you want. And the Bible says similar stuff. You know, Jesus says the Son sets you free. If you know the Son, you are free indeed. He says you are completely free. And so does that mean that we can do whatever we want? I don't think it does. Because we hold on to our freedom. But then, in the other hand, we recognize that we don't exist in a vacuum. That we have duty. That there are people whose lives are around ours. And we need to do our duty as well. And I wonder when you look at your faith, what would it look like if everybody lived like you live? I mean, it's great saying you have freedom. I could give today, or I could not give today, and I've got freedom. But what would it look like if everybody gave today like you gave? Are you doing your duty? What would it look like if everybody shared the gospel like you share the gospel? How would that transform or not transform our world? What would it look like if everybody served like you serve? Are you doing your duty? You're free. You can do what you want completely, and there's no judgment. There's grace. There's also duty. And I think that there's another meaning to this word duty as well. Maybe you're here today and you're like, do you know what? I'm going to give big. Well, that's okay. You're just doing your duty. You know, it's not, you don't look better. It's not about you.
Yeah.
It's not about you being amazing because you do something phenomenal here, but you're just doing your duty.
Yeah.
There's another sense to it as well. It's not about us making ourselves look good or trying to impress people, anything like that. I'm just playing my part.
Yeah.
I recognize that I have a significant role here, same as every single one of us has a significant role here. And so I use my freedom
Yeah. It's good, man.
to help other people. And this is what Paul talks about, isn't it? He says, you know, you're free, but don't use your freedom at the expense of other people. Freedom and duty is another tension that we have to hold as we walk forward in faith. And the final tension is the now and the not yet. Today versus eternity. I said at the beginning that last year we did a first fruits offering. And just quick show of hands. We've done this a few times. Put your hand up if you weren't sitting in a seat for the first fruits offering last year. If you've arrived since then. Like loads of us. You need to recognize that you're here because people gave. You're here because other people have been sacrificial, and our lives are built on generations before us. It's not just true of the cinema, it's not just true of the seats, it's not just true of our lives. Everything about us has been built on Christians that have come before and they've shared the gospel. People who have taken huge faith steps. Our lives are built on the shoulders of the people before us. And we need to then enjoy this moment. We should enjoy this screen. We should enjoy these seats. We should enjoy our faith. We need to live in the now. We should be living today. We should be having fun as a community. We should be making the most of these moments. And yet at the same time, we should recognize that the decisions that we make impact eternity. And there's a weight to that. There's a weight to my faith steps because I recognize that the decisions that I make today are actually about people's forever after. They're eternal decisions that we make. And so I don't just want to make the decisions that make me happy right now. I don't just want to make decisions that bring me joy. I want to make decisions that impact the world forever. I want to make decisions which are going to ripple and ripple and ripple. I want to make decisions which are going to transform people's lives. There's a weight to this.
Good, man.
I don't mean a weight like a burden. I mean a weight like when you buy something really expensive. You know, a really nice, beautiful, solid weight. When we step out in faith, there's a weight. We need to respect that. We need to hold that.
That's good.
And so I have responsibility, but I will not let go of risk. I recognize that I have freedom, but I will not let go of duty. I know that I'm here in the now, but I will not be blind to the eternal. You know, I don't just live by sight, I live by faith.
Yeah.
So I don't look less, I see more.
Yeah.
I believe that God is doing far more than I can see around me.
Yeah.
And because I know that God is doing more, it actually gives me courage. It gives me optimism, it gives me hope. Because I know that if I get this wrong, He is already working.
Yeah.
He is already there with me. I think that the only thing that I can't do is nothing.
Yeah.
Because if I do nothing, I stay here. But if I try my best to hold on to these two tensions, I find myself stepping forwards and forwards and forwards. And it's in the tension that the sound of your life resounds.
It's good, man.
I think that this is what it means to live worship. To hold tensions, to still move forward, to still step again and again and again. I've got my doubts. I don't understand all of this. There's so much chaos here. I don't know how this is going to end. I don't know how God's going to solve this, but I know that He will.
Yeah, it's good, man.
And so I keep walking step after step after step. I don't stop looking at everything around me. I'm so aware of everything. But I don't let my doubts hold me back.
It's good, man.
I keep walking forwards.
Come on, bro.
When I think about first fruits, I always think about Jesus. The Bible tells us that Jesus was God's first fruit offering. That before there was any blessing, He sent Jesus first. That He sent Jesus so that we could then live in the blessing. That we benefit from what God did first. And Jesus' life was held in these tensions. He was God and He was human. He had power to do everything, and yet at the same time, He humbled Himself and He made Himself a man. He could do what He wanted, but He did His duty. He did what God told Him at every single step. He did what was right for the people around Him. I believe that Jesus partied better than anybody because He knew the value of the moment.
Yeah. Well,
And yet at the same time, everything He did seemed to have eternal consequences.
yeah.
He held the extremes in beautiful tension. And then there came this day when He gave His life for us in attention. That He was held there for us so that we wouldn't have to live with fear. We wouldn't have to live with shame. We wouldn't have to live with frustration. That we could make these steps. We could live beyond ourselves. That we could experience that more that we know is there.
Yeah.
Because His tension holds us.
It's good, man.
And so I'm held in the middle of all of the chaos by Jesus.